tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
You're scared. You don't know if bomb is not going to be dropped on your head.
Ukrainians fleeing war arrive in BC.
She's welcome to stay here as long as they're wanting.
As Canadians open their homes and hearts.
Things that will really help protect the public and travelers coming through.
Almost 20 years in the making, crews are getting close to finishing major upgrades to a challenging stretch of highway between BC and Alberta.
What's the best small town in British Columbia?
And you get to answer that big question in Justin McElroy's latest online competition.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. Anita is off tonight. As millions of Ukrainians flee their homes amid the Russian invasion, Canada is among the countries opening its doors to refugees. Some are already getting settled here in BC. Our John Hernandez has more on their struggle to deal with the horrors of war and adapt to a dramatically new life.
Oksana Druchinina knows she's safe, and every day she feels guilty for it.
People are starving, they're out of their homes, and here am I have this all, offered to me.
Just 2 weeks ago, she was working at the humanitarian Mennonite Center in Ukraine. She was on her way to Kiev when Russia started attacking.
You're scared. You don't know if bomb is not going to be dropped on your head. You don't know if you're going to survive.
She made the decision to flee the country with her 3 kids. Her husband wasn't allowed to leave and is still there. She's now resettled in Langley, where she's staying with relatives of one of her colleagues.
We've made it very clear that she's welcome to stay here as long as they're wanting, and so yeah, it's been great actually to be able to have her and her family just become family members.
Druchinina is among more than 2.5 million Ukrainians that have fled the country. A number of churches in BC have been working to pair incoming refugees with host families.
I think as of yesterday, we had close to 300 people who've already committed to help, to host, and offers range from a bedroom in an apartment to an apartment to basement suites.
While other families have been reunited. Coquitlam resident Dmitry Brachenko recently welcomed his 3 children into Canada after they fled the country.
We should be okay. It's a stress for us in a financial way that right now we have to adjust to adapt, because our children came only with their backpacks. That's it. That was their carry-ons, and we have to start over.
Many community members in BC and beyond chipping in to help in any way they can, including this host who will perform at a benefit concert for Ukrainian families this weekend.
There's nothing that I can do to stop the war as far as I know, but there is something that I can do to try to help individual people.
An outpouring of support not lost on those who find themselves now trying to settle into a new life.
Their acceptance has been great, so you really feel special, but in the wrong way, because you're a refugee now.
John Hernandez, CBC News, Langley.
Later in the show, a different experience of the invasion. We're going to speak with a British Columbian who fled Moscow and made his way home to Revelstoke. We'll tell you about the career he left behind and how he was able to get out as Putin set his sights on Ukraine. Avalanche Canada has issued a warning for anyone heading into the mountains along the south coast. They recommend avoiding all avalanche terrain from the alpine to well below the tree line.
Under conditions like this, it's really important that you have a basic level of training so that you're able to identify avalanche terrain and you're able to avoid the avalanche terrain.
The danger rating is high because of heavy rain and snow falling on the existing snowpack. Avalanche Canada expects up to 70 centimeters to build up by tonight. And let's bring in our meteorologist, Johanna Wagstaffe, back with us for a first look at the forecast. Joe, some concerns about those avalanche conditions, and that was a lot of rain. How much more are we going to get?
Yeah, we're not quite done, Dan, with the system that has been bringing us steady rain all day, and it is translating to mountain snow. All of our local mountains seen accumulating snow with this event, likely getting 10 to 20 centimeters for places like Seymour, Cypress, and Grouse, and for the mountain passes as well. Take a look at Seymour earlier today, almost blizzard-like conditions as that system brought snow levels up around 1,000 meters. That didn't stop people getting out to enjoy the fresh snow, because it has been a while since we've seen some fresh snow. We're in a bit of a snow deficit across southern BC after such a good start to the season, so it was worth the winds and low visibility, I think, for many. Let me take you back down to sea level, though, where rainfall warnings are in place, 50 to 80 millimeter total by tomorrow morning. Also notice that winter storm warning for the southeastern mountain passes. Latest look at the radar, and that yellow means heavy rain is coming down right now across a huge swath of Metro Vancouver, all thanks to this big low pressure system sitting in the Alaska Panhandle, directing that surge of moisture in from the southwest. We don't get much of a break overnight. Notice the blue, though, falling for the mountain ranges. I do think we'll see some lightening up of the rain through tomorrow morning, but we'll have to wait until tomorrow evening to really see the end to this event, Dan. So a few more hours to go, but as long as we think about what's happening on the mountains, then there's a silver lining. Hopefully.
We like that. Thank you, Jo. Good to have you back.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Weather update brought to you by Alegria by Cirque du Soleil. Opens March 25th at Concord Pacific Place.
A $900 million roadwork project in the Rocky Mountains is almost finished. Once done, travel between Alberta and BC will be faster and safer. Good thing, too, after just this last month, a rock slide claimed the life of a motorist. But as Brendan Coulter reports, the rough terrain is creating challenges for crews.
Just east of the town of Golden, the Trans-Canada Highway snakes through the Kicking Horse Canyon. Hundreds of essential vehicles pass through the narrow section of highway every day. And since 2003, crews have been blasting the mountain cliffs and reinforcing bridges to make the road wider and safer. Nearly 2 decades in, the fourth and final phase of the project kicked off in 2021. But work on the last 4.8-kilometer section of the canyon has not been easy. They saved the most challenging bit for last.
It's steep. The rock is questionable in places. We're in the Rocky Mountains, and the type of rock we have is not always the most reliable, so you're placed with some really incredible geotechnical challenges.
Executive Project Director Mike Lorimer says rockfall, avalanches, and landslides are all potential hazards crews have had to plan for. And crews aren't the only ones affected by the harsh terrain. On March 5th, a passenger in a white Jeep was struck and killed by a falling boulder.
So as we get into spring, as things freeze overnight and thaw, it does tend to free up the rockfall. And what we saw was a natural rockfall came down and hit the vehicle. It was in an area where the project hasn't yet started, so certainly no construction impacts that we can see. It's just a very unfortunate, tragic natural incident. I think what it highlights is the importance of this project. Is as we complete this work, we'll be taking these exposed rock slopes and we'll be putting measures in place like rockfall attenuation, catchment ditches, things that will really help protect the public and travelers coming through.
On either side of the cliffs is alpine forest, which means unexpected visitors sometimes roam through the worksite.
There was a story early on through the winter of one of the crews working at night that kind of looked around behind them and there was a cougar watching.
Phase 4 of the Kicking Horse Canyon project will see wildlife underpasses built along the road in an effort to cut down on the interaction between wildlife and traffic. Completion of the project is projected for late 2023 or early 2024. In the meantime, watch for road closures and long delays. Brendan Coulter, CBC News, on the Kicking Horse Pass near Golden.
You might call it a not-so-age-old question. What is the best small town in British Columbia? Well, we're about to find out. Over the next 7 weeks, we'll be traveling the province and asking viewers to vote for their favorite. And naturally, who else to oversee this friendly competition than our municipal affairs reporter, the bracket-loving, button-wearing Justin McElroy. Here's how it works.
What's the best small town in British Columbia? Now, you could say it's Nelson or Smithers or Tofino or pretty much anywhere else you like, or we can decide it with a bracket. And that's what we're going to do over the next 7 weeks. Here's how. We went through every municipality, unincorporated area, First Nations community, and island between 500 and 12,000 people. We then separated them out into 4 different regions of the province: Vancouver Island, the North, the Interior, and Southwest BC. 4 separate sections of 32 towns. Every Tuesday to Friday, there will be new one-on-one votes at cbc.ca/BC for a different section of the province, which means each week will reduce the number of towns from 128 to 64 to 32 to 16 to 8 to 4, and then in late April, there'll be just 2 towns left in a one-on-one vote, and that will determine the best small town in British Columbia.
And our own Justin McElroy joins us now from a mildly damp Tofino. Justin, 128 entries in this competition. What makes Tofino a favorite, first of all?
Well, it's the quintessential West Coast town, and it's internationally renowned. There's lots of people in Tofino. There's lots of British Columbians that have been to it. But of course, there's so many small towns across British Columbia. They each have unique backstories, economies, and it's going to be wonderful to do this friendly competition to see which one comes up on top.
Yeah, friendly in quotes. How did you determine what exactly is a small town?
I mean, it is subjective, but we said that anything under 12,000 people or more than 500, that's a municipality, a Gulf island, an unincorporated community, or a First Nations community. So we went through the list, we did some play-in votes last round, and from that we've gotten 128 different towns, each with unique stories, and they'll be going in a series of one-on-one competitions over the next 6 weeks to determine which is the best.
Now, how do you choose between who goes against who?
Well, we've divided the bracket into 4 different quadrants. We're right now in Vancouver Island. That's one of them. Another one is Southwest BC, including the Gulf Islands and Sunshine Coast. We then have the interior, and then we have the north. So in each of those, there are 32 different small towns, and each week we'll go one by one down from 32 to 16 to 8 to 4 to 2 until we have one champion from each, then a final 4, and that's how we'll figure it out.
What are some of the other favorites in this competition?
I mean, it depends who you are and what part of the province you like and what's the reason you think a small town is great. But we do have #1 seeds in each of the 4 brackets. So for Vancouver Island, Tofino is #1. For Southwest BC, we've made Salt Spring Island. For the interior, it's Nelson. For the north, it's Smithers. But as you can see from all of these lists, there's a lot of different options. That's just, and there's 128 overall that could be picked. So it depends which people rally around their towns. It depends who finds one's particularly interesting that they want to keep voting for, that has great community spirit. It's wide open, and we hope to shine some light on some interesting stories throughout the competition.
And remind our viewers when and where to vote to make this happen.
So every day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, each week, people can vote. If they go to www.cbc.ca/best Small Town BC, there'll be a link every day they can click on. There'll be all the votes there, and it's just that simple.
Justin McElroy, thank you so much. Don't get swept out to sea again. Take care.
Thanks, Dan.
To other news now, transit police are releasing surveillance video they hope will help them find a suspect wanted in connection to an unprovoked attack on a bus driver. Take a look. Police say a man boarded a bus on Main Street near National Avenue in Vancouver early in the morning of February 20th. Several minutes later, he got up, but then he stumbled and fell. Eventually, though, he moves to the front of the bus across from the driver. Police say he allegedly reached around the driver's plexiglass barrier, spraying him in the face with what's believed to be pepper spray. Anyone who recognizes this person or knows what happened is asked to contact transit police. Well, welcome news for many workers in BC. Starting June 1st, the province's minimum wage is going up by 40 cents an hour.
This is important for workers in our province, especially for the lowest paid, most vulnerable workers, many of whom have worked tirelessly during the pandemic and kept our grocery stores open and our supply chain moving.
British Columbians already have the highest minimum wage in the country. The change means wages will climb from $15.20 an hour to $15.65 an hour. COVID-19 numbers in BC have been generally holding steady over the past 3 days. BC didn't see as large of a drop in hospitalizations as previous weeks. 9 fewer patients are in hospital right now. That's down to 359. At least 5 more people have been admitted to critical care. 51 are now in ICU. And 14 more people have died from COVID-19 and complications from the disease for the past 3 days. The number of passengers traveling through YVR is rising after 2 years of the pandemic. The airport is currently seeing about 37,000 passengers a day. That's up from 25,000 a month ago. Spring break is set to be its busiest period since March of 2020. But current figures for this time of year are still about half what they were before COVID-19 hit. A travel agent says bookings are rising sharply. Destinations of choice are Hawaii, Mexico, and such spots not too far away.
A lot of people are wanting to take that trip and leave the country, but maybe not quite ready to go on that trip to Australia or Europe.
He says bookings jumped the moment COVID testing was relaxed for returning Canadian travelers. Keep in mind, since YVR is federally run, you still need to wear a mask there and show proof of vaccination in the terminals and on the planes. Now, if you've ever dropped or lost a face mask, we might have an idea of where it ended up. A Vancouver man is on a mission to clean littered masks off of city streets, and he's already collected thousands. As Janella Hamilton shows us, what started as a way to keep busy has turned into a full-time pandemic project.
1, 2, 3. Each mask David Papineau picks up is one less piece of PPE polluting the environment.
Yesterday, I picked up mask number 32,000.
Papineau has been collecting masks and other pandemic waste for 1 year. It started as a way to kill pandemic boredom, but quickly turned into an everyday outing.
General disgust with the amount of litter on the ground, masks in particular.
Looking under parked cars, in alleyways, and near catch basins, Papineau says he's still shocked by how many masks he comes across, a journey he documents online.
Once the snow melted, it was like retreating glaciers, offering up an archaeological feast of masks everywhere. Around schools, shopping centers, around transit, definitely on major streets.
According to Metro Vancouver, in 2020, residents in the region threw out 528 million pieces of PPE, including more than 100 million masks, 48 million wipes, and 371 million gloves. And while these items can help protect people during the pandemic, Metro Vancouver says people should take steps to ensure they end up in a landfill rather than litter.
So most of the disposable masks we see are a plastic fiber, and so they're not something that you can recycle in your blue bin. They're not something that can go in the compost bin. The responsible thing to do is to put them in the garbage.
Papineau, who is a long-distance runner, uses apps to track his mask collecting, a strategy he says helps him cover more ground.
Tell me where I've gone in the last month or 2 weeks or whatever, so that I know that there's going to be a better chance of finding masks.
At this point, Papineau says he's scoured at least half of the city, sometimes spending hours searching for masks.
I think I've walked close to 4 hours picking up masks, and I'll end up with, 500 masks.
Earlier this week, BC lifted its mask mandate in low-risk indoor public spaces, a change Papineau hopes leads to less waste on the street and in the ocean. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Getting a refund was an uphill battle for one Whistler season pass holder who was hurt on the slopes. This despite the ski resort's insurance policy promising to cover such claims. As Go Public's Carolyn Bargut reports, dozens of customers have since come forward with similar complaints.
This is what Trevor Purvis lives for. In 2020, he spent about $1,000 on a season's pass for unlimited snowboarding at Whistler Blackcomb. Days into his season, he crashed into a tree and broke his femur.
I remember kind of coming to and being a little disoriented. And my first thought was, I'm probably not going to do much more riding today.
He was right.
The final staircase.
Purvis needed surgery and months of healing to repair the damage. But he knew he could try to recoup some of the money he lost on the snowboard pass. Vail Resorts, the American owner of Whistler Blackcomb, gives its customers a free-of-charge refund policy called Epic Coverage. According to their terms and conditions, Purvis qualified for a partial refund, but he soon hit another wall. The company Vail contracted to handle the incoming claims.
He kind of felt like I was talking to a robot. You're just getting these automated responses that are like, yeah, your claim is in line. And I realized halfway through this process that this is the kind of company that they were, like that I wasn't going to get anywhere.
Purvis is not alone. Numerous people have written to Go Public recounting Epic coverage headaches, many of them seeking refunds for the resort's COVID-19 closure last year, to no avail.
That's because COVID closures aren't covered by the policy outright. A Vail spokesperson told Go Public refund eligibility depends on the type of Epic coverage customers got, information that was buried in the fine print.
And it's a problem across the board. This Toronto lawyer says companies should make policy conditions obvious to avoid surprises.
I feel for the public because these are very difficult to understand. There's lots of litigation that comes out of insurance policies.
After Go Public contacted Vail, Purvis was told he'll get some of his money back. Despite the year-long fight, he says he'll be a Vail customer for seasons to come.
Unfortunately, they have the mountain that I want to be on.
Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And if you have a tip for our Go Public team to look into, you can email gopublic@cbc.ca. More and more of Ukraine is being impacted by a widening war as Russia targets spots across that country. But there are some slim hopes of a peace agreement. The latest on the conflict and a possible resolution after this. Hello to everyone watching on our commercial-free live stream. Thanks for being here. A woman from PEI is raising thousands of dollars for Ukraine by giving away pierogies. Lori Jaworski has been selling pierogies at the Charlottetown Farmers Market for decades. This Saturday, she offered them up for free in exchange for a donation. Have a look.
I said, what can I do to help? What can I do as one person to help? My history is my people were forced out of Poland during the war, and it touched a spot because sister countries, Poland, Ukraine, and I wanted to help as I knew Poland needed help back in the day. I had 5,000 pierogies here this morning. I know what my mom and dad would want me to do. They would want me to make pierogies and give them away. I said, so I'm going to do that, but if anybody has any money they want to donate to the Ukraine as a result of giving away free pierogies, let's do it that way. I think it's going to be at least $5,000. Well, the Red Cross is matching donations, so if I come up with $5,000 and donate some of that to the Red Cross, they are going to match it dollar for dollar. I hope it gets to the ground level really quick because there's people hungry, thirsty, and needing provisions, medicines. So I'm hoping that some of the money gets to the ground immediately. Only part of my money is going to go to the Red Cross, and the Ukraine Canada Foundation, people that are here on the island, are going to come, take some money, and transfer it to people that they know need it right away, like today. You couldn't take the smile off my face. I'm tired, but my heart is bursting. My community is awesome. I'm proud. I'm only one person, but I thought that one person, with the help of others, can change lives.
With Russia continuing to pummel Ukraine, the two sides took another run at peace today, holding a new round of talks. There was no breakthrough, though, so the fighting continues tonight. That devastation is mounting for Ukrainians who have already lost so much. Behind the images of destruction, shattered buildings, homes destroyed, there are the stories of the dead and wounded, those who wouldn't or couldn't flee. The UN has recorded at least 636 civilian deaths. 46 of them are children. Officially, the number of injured has topped 1,100, but all of those numbers are thought to be much, much higher. Right now, Russia controls areas of Ukraine's north, east, and south, as you can see. But explosions and air raid sirens are ringing out all the way west. Our Chris Brown takes us into the country.
We're hearing the air raid sirens every night now in Lviv, with the latest Russian target, a TV transmission tower north of here that the local governor says left 9 people dead. While Russia's military push on the ground may be grinding to a halt from the air, it's continuing to inflict horrible losses. On the 19th day of Russia's war on Ukraine, the outskirts of Kyiv woke up to Russian attacks from above, this one on a residential building filled with families. We hid inside the closet, he said. We thought we were going to be captured, that Russians were getting in through our door. We were wrong. We got out. We saw our staircase was gone and everything was on fire. The moment of impact of another attack was captured on a CCTV camera, along with a lucky escape from a man walking by. In Mariupol, a city pulverized by Russian artillery, this haunting drone video, released by a controversial paramilitary unit of the Ukrainian National Guard, shows high-rise after high-rise blackened by shelling, with 200,000 people trapped in deplorable conditions. And there's word that the Russian airstrike last week on the city's maternity hospital claimed another victim, this badly injured pregnant woman seen in a widely published photo being rescued. Doctors tried to save her unborn baby, delivering it via emergency cesarean, but it did not survive, and she died shortly after. Russia's government claimed the whole incident was faked. With Russia unable to quickly subdue Ukraine's army, but with Ukraine's forces unable to push the Russians out, both sides met again today for peace talks. Our position remains unchanged, said a Ukrainian negotiator. Immediate ceasefire, withdrawal of troops, and only then can we talk about neighborly relations.
Putin was very clear when he started this invasion. He does not recognize Ukraine as an independent country.
Andrei Shevchenko is a former Ukrainian ambassador to Canada who spent 6 years in Ottawa. Now he's working with international media covering the war in Ukraine. Can you see Ukrainians ever accepting a deal where they have to give up some of their territory because of this war?
No. I think the price that we have been paying is so tremendous, is so huge, and we are not ready to give up our territory and our people.
The regional governor of Lviv told CBC News he sees no possible compromise with Putin. We will only accept one thing, said Maxim Kozitsky, victory of the Ukrainian people over this horde. The overwhelming belief here is that Vladimir Putin will never allow Ukraine to make its own independent decisions. So grinding Russia's army down, no matter how terrible the cost is for Ukraine, may be the only option right now. Chris Brown, CBC News, Lviv, Ukraine.
Now in its third week, Russia's invasion is expanding. Attacks are finding new targets in western Ukraine. The previously untouched region is now coming into the crosshairs of Russian missiles, while cities in the east are still under siege. David Common reports from Lviv.
Tens of thousands of internally displaced people, those who live in areas being ravaged by violence inflicted by Russian troops, have moved into the relative safety of this city. They've been able to enroll some of their children in school, for instance, and yet the nights are disrupted by air raid sirens that run for multiple hours, night after night after night. But it is in places like Kyiv and Mariupol and Kharkiv, the second largest city, where the most intense violence is continuing to be felt. Bombardments of artillery, gunfights in the streets, besieged cities. Mariupol, they are having street cleaners collect the dead and bury them in mass graves because that is the only thing that can be done at this point. In Kharkiv, there are concerns that they will run out of food and water. The same situation playing out in Mariupol. And there are funerals, one of which we saw today. A man who was a teacher in a village, beloved, only recently became a grandfather, killed in Kyiv and buried today. And in fact, buried just a few kilometers away from where Russian cruise missiles landed on a military base, almost right against the Polish border, and caused dozens of casualties on that military base, which was reportedly used to ferry Western-supplied weapons and train perhaps foreign fighters at that base. There are also diplomatic efforts that continue. Russian and Ukrainian diplomats meeting by video today, set to do so again tomorrow. There are some who are optimistic that perhaps there could be a ceasefire or some kind of agreement, and yet all of this is going to have to go through Vladimir Putin's Kremlin. And to this point, they have shown an intent to cause enormous damage and have done so repeatedly, day after day. David Common, CBC News, Lviv, Ukraine.
Members of the British government are now mulling creative ways to house incoming Ukrainian refugees, even putting them up in luxury real estate seized from Russian oligarchs. But as Susan Ormiston shows us, they're not the only ones who see that confiscated property could be used to make a point.
In posh Belgravia, activists scaled the multi-million-dollar mansion of a Russian oligarch, liberating the property, they said.
Fascism is everywhere!
The owner, Oleg Deripaska, is a Russian industrialist worth billions and close to Putin. He was hit with sanctions last week, one of nearly 20 whose UK assets are frozen. As London police tried to reach them, they stood their ground, sending a statement, "You occupy Ukraine, we occupy you," adding they intended to use the mansion as a center for refugee support. Not as wild as it might sound.
Mr. Speaker, with
the UK Secretary of State for Housing, Michael Gove, floated the idea in a weekend interview with the BBC.
We are saying, you're sanctioned, you're supporting Putin, this home is here, you have no right to use or profit from it, and more than that, while you are not using or profiting from it, if we can use it in order to help others, let's do that.
To help with the influx of refugees, he suggested, although admitting it would run into legal challenges.
I think it's going to take more than a few anarchists squatting that property for him to be deprived of his property rights.
Writer Oliver Bullough says Britain has allowed Russian oligarchs to operate with impunity in the UK. His new book traces the money and influence and says the British need to go further.
The system that Putin has built has been enabled out of this city. If this crisis isn't enough to make the government really, pick itself up and start taking real action, then you wonder what crisis will be.
Near the end of the day, riot police entered the house, confirming no one was inside, and police worked to force the activists down, having made their point. Police are securing the area. The activists are gone. The UK government says it's trying to figure out what to do with these seized properties while the owners are under sanctions. The owner of this house accused the British government of colluding with squatters. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, London.
This is Zach Rogers, dancing in a production of Giselle at the Stanislavski Theatre in Moscow. He traveled from his hometown of Revelstoke, BC, to pursue his dream of dancing for a Russian company. He's been dancing in Moscow for 3 years now, but Russia's invasion of Ukraine forced him to make a very quick decision. As he saw the conflict unfold, he chose to leave his thriving ballet career and flee. And joining us in BC in Vernon is Zach Rogers. Zach, thank you for being here. When you were in Moscow as the conflict started to unfold, what was the atmosphere that you felt and that your fellow dancers there felt?
Hi, Dan. Thank you so much for having me. The atmosphere was incredibly heavy. I think most of my colleagues, we felt a bit lost. The Russians were quick to tell the foreigners that nobody in our theater, nobody wanted this to happen. Most Russians were completely against what's going on.
Was there a moment when you realized, given the escalating situation, that you needed to get out?
Yeah, I think it was probably 2 or 3 days after the news broke, because everything happened very quickly. We knew that this was not going to go away anytime soon. It was only going to escalate further, and we knew we had to act quickly before we would basically be stranded in Russia. And so 2 or 3 days, I decided that I would have to make the move.
And tell us about that journey. We understand it was relatively short. Where did you go? How did you do it?
Well, with the air travel being so restricted to Europe, pretty much the only way I could get myself and my dog safely to Europe was via St. Petersburg and Helsinki. So we took a short flight to St. Petersburg and then a bus to Helsinki, about 6 to 7 hours. And then I flew to Vancouver via Frankfurt from there. Yeah.
And you're safe now in Canada, but what's the feeling you have not being able to be there, because being part of the dance company and working there in Russia as a ballet dancer, that's a prestigious thing.
It is very prestigious, and for me it was always a dream. I'm lucky to be able to say that I achieved my dream of working in Russia, and it was very devastating to have to leave, but I knew that it was the right choice. I didn't doubt myself, because the future of my career there, to me, was too unstable. But I do miss it. I do miss dancing already, but I'm relieved to be safe at home, and I know that in the future, there could always be a chance to go back when things are different.
And lastly, what have you heard from your colleagues who are still there?
Well, our theater continues to work to give performances as scheduled, but it's getting harder to keep in touch with people there, first of all, with various social media sites like Instagram and Facebook being blocked. And, people are extremely devastated by what's going on. That's all I can say. I mean, it's hard to see, especially from afar. It's hard to reassure people when you're not there physically, but I'm doing my best.
Zach Rogers, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Are you racking up frequent flyer miles, perhaps with a yearly high-interest, yearly fee credit card? Why, RateHub says you ought to ditch it and go cash back. We have more credit card tips for you next.
The Vancouver shipyard in North Vancouver, where the Queen of Alberni was made more than 20 years ago. Today, it's in for repairs to its bow.
This is just a minor, it's just a bump. It's a fender bender. It's nothing major.
We hit it on about a 45-degree angle.
Your attention, please. Did you saw the freighter approaching?
Oh yes, I saw it coming out of the fog.
It did not appear to be a fender bender yesterday morning to people aboard the Queen of Alberni. At 8 a.m., the BC Ferry was leaving the Tsawwassen Ferry Terminal in heavy fog. Within minutes, it had smacked into the side of the 291-meter Japanese freighter, the Shinwa Maru, slicing a big gash near the coal ship's bow. 16 people on board the ferry were injured. Today, 15 of them have been released from hospital. The last injured man is listed in good condition and should be released in a few days. That's about the same time the Queen of Alberni will be back in service.
Well, at the moment, they're cutting out all the old and damaged steel. And while that is going on, in another part of the yard, sections are being prefabricated out of the new steel. And when that's all put together, it'll bring it all back in one module and fit it on the boat.
This accident took place on the first day when BC Ferries was running hourly service between the island and Tsawwassen. At 8 o'clock yesterday morning, 2 ferries left Tsawwassen at the same time. This one, the Queen of Alberni, and the Queen of Burnaby. The Queen of Burnaby was heading to Swartz Bay, the Alberni to Nanaimo. That means there were 3 big ships in the area at the time of the crash. Could this be a case like the Sea Link crash last month, in which one ship apparently was confused about the location of the other 2 ferries? The Coast Guard is keeping mum.
Both ships were also talking to each other before the accident occurred. We've taken the tapes of those conversations and handed them over to the Transportation Safety Board, and they'll be releasing a report on the accident.
Now, there was a third ship, the Queen of Burnaby, that left about the same time. Do you have tapes from that one?
There would be tapes of that one as well, yes.
So there were conversations as well as radar contact. The Queen of Alberni's bridge was sealed shut today, but it had 2 sets of radar in working order. Working normally in fog, that radar could not have missed the close presence of a ship 2 football fields long.
It could be the malfunction of the radar, technical part of it, or it could be just the not enough information to ascertain the situation by either or both of these sides.
The Chinois Maru sits here in the Burrard Inlet. It weighs 20 times more than the Queen of Alberni. If it had hit the Alberni instead of the other way around, it would have been no fender bender. The ferry could have sunk. For the CBC Evening News, I'm Bob Nixon in Vancouver.
Here are some of the stories we're following tonight for you on CBC Vancouver News.
Acceptance has been great, so you really feel special, but in the wrong way, because you're a refugee now.
They have fled violence and destruction. Now Ukrainian refugees are trying to settle into new lives here in BC as Canadians welcome them into their homes. Local church leaders say hundreds of people have volunteered to help, and another host is holding a benefit concert this weekend.
We're in the Rocky Mountains, and the type of rock we have is not always the most reliable, so you're placed with some really incredible geotechnical challenges. And then we do have some existing landslide instabilities in the area that we have to work around.
They've been at it for almost 20 years, but work crews still have a few years left to finish improvements on Highway 1 in the Kicking Horse Canyon, close to the BC-Alberta border at Golden. The narrow, winding route is being upgraded to be faster and safer. Earlier this month, a rock slide struck and killed a person there.
4 separate sections of 32 towns.
Is it Creston? Is it Courtney? Maybe Ashcroft? You can help decide BC's best small town. Our Justin McElroy naturally has built a new bracket to determine our province's top small community. You can vote at cbc.ca/BC. If you're thinking about switching credit cards, it can be tough to choose between travel rewards or some cash back. RateHub.ca looked at a few offerings from several banks, and what they've come up with might surprise you. The online financial portal suggests people ditch the travel rewards and go for the cash back option. They found cash back cards offer much more bang for the buck, and they also found 54% of Canadian credit card holders are already enjoying those benefits. And joining us is Alyssa Furtado. She is the co-CEO of RateHub. Alyssa, first of all, what are the advantages that cashback cards have over points cards?
Biggest advantage is just how simple they are. So we did some surveying at RateHub, and it turns out that only about 31% of Canadians actually redeem their rewards every year. And oftentimes that's because you might be close to a flight, but not quite there. You're trying to save your points to maximize them for the right trip. But with a cashback, you can just earn straight cash. It's really simple. So it's easy to understand. And then you might be more likely to actually redeem it and take full advantage of it.
Were there any major disadvantages you found that cashback cards offer that points cards are actually better at?
I think in some cases, so if you are a points guru and you take full advantage and maximize your redemption, you can end up earning a bit more from a dollar value perspective on the same amount of spend. So you just have to know yourself and ask yourself, how dedicated are you going to be to optimizing and maximizing your points?
Now, each bank and financial institution, whoever offers a credit card, they offer different spending categories that people can choose to get cash back from. Can you explain a bit how that works?
Yeah, so, there's all different types of cashback cards. American Express has the Simply Cash. It's a no annual fee card that just has a flat 1.25% back on all of your spending. Tangerine, on the other hand, you can get up to 3 categories you can choose to get 2% cash back. You automatically get to pick 2 categories, and then if you open a savings account with them, you'll get 2% on a 3rd category. So you can understand, these programs start to get a little bit more complex, but if you do your research and reading online, it's all about figuring out where you spend most of your money and what card is going to be the best for you.
We've heard that it's the old maxim, do your homework, do your own research. When people are doing that, investigating whether or not they, choosing any credit card, be it cash back or points, what are perhaps 2 or 3 things they need to look for in those details to make sure they're getting what they need?
It's a great question. I think the most important thing is get a sense of your spending categories. So how much do you spend each month, and roughly how does that break down between things like gas and groceries and recurring bills? Sites like RateHub have great calculators where you can enter in your spend by category, and we've figured out the bank's algorithms in the back end, so we can help you do that recommendation. But that's the biggest thing. Understand your spending. Make sure, first and foremost, that a credit card's right for you. And we always check, are you paying your balances every month? The rewards and points are awesome, but only if you're not paying credit card interest, if you're not paying your bills off each month.
Alyssa Furtado, we appreciate your time. Thank you. A herd of elk spotted near Maple Ridge are a sign of success. Why relocated Roosevelt elk are thriving and where they came from. That's next. And at 6:45, a live look at the Georgia Strait from beautiful Parksville. Stormy shores, wind, and heavy rain battered the south coast today, but we have a hint of blue sky. Don't ditch the rain jacket just yet. Johanna has your BC-wide forecast after this. 20 years after elk were reintroduced to the Lower Mainland, one wildlife observer says the population appears to be thriving. In this shot, you can see a herd crossing the Upper Pitt River north of Maple Ridge. Starting in the early 2000s, Roosevelt elk were moved from the Sunshine Coast to the mainland, where overhunting during the previous century had wiped them out. A helicopter pilot took this video last week and says the healthy herd appears to be doing quite well.
We, of course, we love nature, so we always looking for exciting things to see, and this was like definitely one of those moments that you both say, "Oh, look at this! Wow!" Like so, we were, quite amazing, and happy to see it that they're thriving. So hopefully they will be left alone and can grow more and more. It was definitely one of the moments that you say, "Wow! Like this is beautiful."
A conservation report says over the years, more than 400 elk have been relocated to the South Coast. BC's Environment Ministry monitors their health and in 2015 allowed a small hunt in the region. She's back. Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now with the forecast. No sign of these animals behind you, Joe?
I was just going to say,
checking.
the elusive elk, you never know, might show up. So
If they're going to be in anyone's yard, I mean, come on.
I actually did look with all seriousness. So please give me the heads up if somebody decides to photobomb me. I would welcome an elk back here. You didn't think I was going to get away without getting in the rain. And yes, it is coming down very heavily right now. Let me take you first to the current temperatures, which are just a touch below seasonal. YVR at a 7 right now. I've got to tell you, though, being outside right now with the daylight, feeling pretty good about waking up extra early this morning. Wasn't feeling good about it then, but the spring ahead serving us well as we speak. Look at the radar. We're seeing that heaviest of the rain track off towards the north. Definitely steady rain continuing for the next couple of hours. Let's take a look at some of those rainfall totals by Wednesday afternoon. Still looking at that bullseye into the North Shore and parts of the Fraser Valley up towards 80 millimeters. And again, this is translating to snow for the local mountains. Getting you right to the good stuff in the long-range forecast. Taking you to the double digits for tomorrow and Wednesday. Our seasonal afternoon highs for this time of the year, 11. Overnight lows are 3. So as has been the case in recent decades, we're seeing this trend where afternoon highs are getting warmer, but our overnight lows are getting warmer faster, even though we're a bit below seasonal for afternoon highs, well above for overnight lows. Okay, so hoping for some sunny breaks tomorrow afternoon. It will be bookended by showers. Steadier rain to start and a few showers to end. Wednesday, I was hoping was going to be more of a mix of sun and cloud day, but at this point, it looks like we will see showers dotting in the afternoon, hoping for more sun than rain, though. Rain returns on Thursday. We've got an active storm system, Pacific jet stream, bringing those storms in one after another. Moderate rain for Thursday, Friday tapering off to showers. And at this point, looking at a mix of sun and cloud for Saturday and Sunday. I'll have to keep my eye on the weekend forecast. I went a bit optimistic with one of the models, but I do think it won't be a complete washout at this point. And yes, Sunday, March 20th is the official spring equinox. I think it's about 8:44 a.m. Pacific time. So we'll keep our eyes on the end of spring as we start the spring season off on a very wet note. But again, Dan, the snow is needed for the local mountains, so there's the silver line.
And I like to say vernal equinox because it makes me sound smart.
Yeah, well, I'm going to do that too then. The vernal equinox.
We're learning every day. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Dan. You're welcome.
Vineyards like warmth. That's what makes Canada, outside of a few spots, a very tough place to make wine. But one maker in Quebec is using the heat of the earth to solve that problem. We'll show you how next.
Jacob Corpan is a national-level swimmer who's always had his eye on the Olympics. But to chase that dream, he's switching his focus from race to grace.
I've always gone as fast as I can, from A to B. But now I have to be artistic and graceful and smooth and elegant.
He's a new, and yes, male, face in a female-dominated sport. Synchronized swimming, now called artistic swimming, is ballet in the water. Powerful swimmers work as a team to perform graceful routines, all synchronized. In 2015, mixed doubles made its World Championship debut, and the co-ed sport could earn a spot in the 2028 Summer Olympics. So the Regina Synchronized Swimming Club has recruited two men, Jacob Corpan and Jake Morris. The 22-year-old Morris is an elite water polo player who jumped in with both feet.
A lot of the movement skills are kind of similar, and the egg beater, which is I guess the biggest part, just very heavy in the egg beater for water polo.
Professional swim coach Jason Coakwell trained Corpan when he was young and coached Morris in water polo. He convinced them both to give artistic swimming a shot.
I didn't want to kind of promote it in a kind of a sarcastic, ironic, or teasing. I was genuine and sincere that this is something that they might be able to do.
Coakwell knew that both Corpan and Morris could handle any stigma in a sport that was considered strictly for women for more than a century.
There's a lot of stereotypes breaking barriers here. They're very strong characters. They're very comfortable in themselves. I think they are mature enough to be able to do this without worrying about what other people are saying.
They're fast and strong, sure, but artistic swimming requires a different approach.
When I race swimming, I am getting my heart rate as high as I can before my event. I'm go, 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 slapping my chest, spraying water myself. I'm buzzing with energy. But with synchro, you have to be very calm. You have to be very composed.
I'd splash a lot more, not move as nicely, so it's taken a sec to have to tell myself to calm down, move nice, be smooth, be graceful.
Morris and Corpan haven't been paired up with female partners yet, but Corpan is getting ready to compete against the highest level.
I was swimming my entire life to make the Olympics, and that's still kind of it. That still is it. Now it's just switched disciplines, but still in the water.
Dan Plaster, CBC News, Regina.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. On March 16th, join the Black Business Association of BC and the cast and crew of CBC's new hit series, The Porter, for a conversation about diversity and inclusion in TV and film. The free virtual event will explore the panelists' experiences filming The Porter and discuss the importance of Black inclusion in film. Learn more and register at blackbusinessbc.ca.
BC and southern Ontario are hot spots for wine, mainly due to the heat. Elsewhere, making wine can be a rather tricky business, especially in colder parts of this country. But a vineyard in the eastern townships of Quebec is getting around that problem. And as Matt Damore explains, they're using a clever process to heat their vines in the winter.
So here you have the geotextile that we use.
Under these tarps lie long rows of grapevines, all hibernating through the winter. But as Sarah Gaston and her family quickly realized when they planted their first vines in 2009, it's not enough to simply cover them in the cold season.
We have the type of wine that we want to make, the type of wine we want to plant, but how we do in Quebec with the colds during winters.
The Du Ruisseau vineyard has vines that make popular wines like Chardonnay, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Merlot, which can be tricky in Quebec's climate since they have to stay above minus 18 degrees. So Gaston's family came up with a novel solution: keep the vines warm using underground heat.
Below 2 meters, the surface of the ground, the temperature is between 5 and 8 Celsius. Winter, summer, spring, here in France, in Hawaii, is always the same temperature. So we go take those, the heat from the ground and we redistribute in the vines.
Using a 15-kilometer long network, a liquid harnesses the geothermal heat and then passes through tubes that run along the vines.
Each side of the vine, we have this tubing. So by radiation, we have the heat for the vines.
With this method, the temperature around the vines doesn't fall below minus 10 degrees, what Gaston calls a sweet spot. That means the vines stay healthy year-round and bear the fruit needed to make all this wine here in Quebec.
I'm proud when somebody's told me, oh, it's beautiful, we like it. We choose those type of wine only by taste. That's the type of wine that we like to drink at home.
Gaston's family patented their geothermal technology and hopes to one day share the process with other vineyards. Matt Damour, CBC News, Dunham.
Thank you for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem. That's our free app. We're also on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and on our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is tonight at 11 o'clock with Zara Premji right after the National. And Anita will be back in the chair tomorrow night. Take care.